Niagara in like southern Canada? Can't y'all say good evening like we would in southern United States? Good evening. Hi. Hi, y'all. I'm Ashley. Okay. Hi. Okay, you'll be right there. Thank you very much. Well, y'all are very beautiful. The room is beautiful. You're beautiful. Pathstone is beautiful. And you're very quiet. You don't have to stand. Okay. So here we are. First of all, I want to thank, I think it was Bernard, who's fabulously dapper in his exquisite suit, for the land acknowledgement, which is how I was going to begin, while also saying it's very poignant to me that I'm not educated enough to pronounce the words of the First Nations people well. But thank you for doing the land acknowledgement. That means a lot to me, and it's always how I begin. And I also want to thank the building staff here at Fallsview for making everything so beautiful, and all of that labor that is often invisible, but is so visible in terms of how sparkling everything is. Everyone who has lit these candles and put these blooms in the water and scrubbed our toilets and washed the mirrors and taken the trash out and kept the grounds and made everything so pristine for us this evening. You are seen and appreciated by me. Thank you. And thank you to all the folks I got to visit with earlier this evening, the board members, the past board members, the volunteers, the staff, the fundraisers, all of the financial underwriters. You know, I'm one of those kids who really could have benefited from a presence like Pathstone, and that's really what I want to visit with you about tonight. And so I was the lost child in my family system, and the cry of every lost child is, where is everybody? Where was everybody? And here on the 14th of June, 2025 in Niagara Falls, Ontario, we can say, well, at least some of you are here. You know, at least some of you are here. And I can go inside to that inner family that is alive inside of me, who I, as a recovering adult child, am reparenting today, and say, well, I'm here for myself and those little kids inside of me. And you are here doing your best to be here in real time for the kids in your community who need all those words that were so resonant and spoken this evening: compassion, dignity, kindness, evidence-based care around anxiety, depression, all those things. And so you're going to get a different kind of story from me tonight. It was mentioned I've made some movies, I've traveled the world, I've been able to do all kinds of stuff, but I want to be with you in real time about what it has been like in literally the past 12, 13 months to reclaim my feelings as a child who grew up in a home with a lot of ouch, you know, and because those little ones in me are listening in, I don't use a lot of clinical language because my body was present for everything that happened, but my feelings weren't, because the feelings had to get tucked away because it was too hard, it wasn't safe to feel the feelings. And you're going to have kids who come into Pathstone, or you're going to be funding programs, or you're going to listen in, or just get a souvenir picture from tonight. Whatever your deal is, whatever brought you through the door tonight is okay. But there will be kids who you are serving via Pathstone who are having the experience that I'm going to describe to you while standing here in this pretty dress, about family dysfunction, about the ouch, about trauma, about male sexual violence, about deprivation, which is the good that is withheld or the help that's not available when there is the ouch, and not being able to feel the feelings, and those feelings getting tucked away. And then all of a sudden at age 56, the feelings unfreezing, which is my experience. Now, I felt a lot of feelings in adulthood. You saw them in the movies. When my beautiful mommy died, I felt the feelings. I did trauma work, I did grief work. I've been in recovery for almost 20 years. I actually sat my rear end in a really good treatment center for 47 days and did work on unresolved childhood grief, not necessarily knowing that I wasn't necessarily feeling the feelings yet. But I got a lot sorted out as an adult. I came to all those Grand Prix races in Toronto. I went to the ones in Vancouver, made movies up here, got to do all kinds of astounding things in my adult life. Had no idea when I sat in 12-step groups for 20 years that even though I was the generational keeper of memories in my family, that my nervous system hadn't yet given me access to the feelings of that ouch growing up. Only when I was safe enough inside and had the internal capacity, the internal resource, the internal trust, could the feelings begin to unfreeze. And they did for the first time on the 14th of October, 2024. That's very recent. And different modalities, if some of you are professionals, will call this different things. Some people might call it dissociation. Some people, internal family systems, they might call those my exiles. It doesn't matter. It's feeling, it's messy, it's intimidating, it's glorious, it's hard, and it's okay. It's okay. So, I came to Niagara Falls as a child with a mama and a papa. They were from Eastern Kentucky and they loved me well. And I think that that's part of what gave me the anchoring in my adult system to show me how an inner loving parent could show up for myself today and give those little ones inside of me the presence and the grounding to say, it's okay, honey, it's okay. I'm here. I've got you while you grieve. I've got you. And so Mama and Papa, who came out of poverty in Eastern Kentucky and worked their way into that robust engine of the American middle class, were eventually able to go on vacations and buy a home and send my dad to private schools. They put every stitch of clothes on me I ever wore growing up. And we did go on vacations in the summer, and we came here. So this is my second time to come here. And when I look out that window in my pretty hotel room that y'all were kind enough to get me, I remember how loved I was, and that consistency and stability and predictability of 3 meals a day and being fed and watered and bathed and powdered and loved and tucked in and all the things that Mama and Papa did for me growing up. And I give that to myself today. And those of you who were there for the kids at Pathstone services, you're giving a little bit of that to those vulnerable, needy, dependent youth. And by the way, that's exactly how God made us to be when we're kids. And maybe you're giving them just a little bit of that safety so that when it's time for them to grow up and reparent or whatever path they're going to be on, they can look back and say, oh, someone gave me that mirror neuron. Someone gave me that sense of blessing. Someone gave me that sense of okayness. And I did have a couple other people growing up. Again, my littles are like listening in, even though I call them all different kinds of things that can be confusing. Sorry, it's like the inner child, the inner teen, that part of me that's still young and vulnerable. And I try to speak on their behalf. It's not their job because I was so parentified, right? Like I started cooking for myself when I was 9. I got myself to my school bus in a new place in the 3rd grade. And by the way, my family loved me very much. It's not about love. And I'm sure that y'all see that. And if you can't, get your own 12-step program and your own therapist and your own trauma help and your own grief work. Because it's not about love. It's about how well the system is working or not working, right? And I don't think any parent wakes up and says, hey, today's a really great day to mess up my kid's life. And it's that generational bundle that gets passed down and down and down and down and down. And my mom would have benefited from Pathstone, and she talked about that so much. And all the help that she wishes she could have had in her home growing up. But I want to make sure that what I share with you is a description. It's not an indictment. And the inventory is a blameless inventory. It's one that allows me to understand where I am today so that I can supply and provision with the help of a higher power myself into this joyful life I am actually living, and we'll get to that. But I have to understand the exact nature of the neglect, the exact nature of the abandonment in order to heal, that measurement in order to heal. The greatest denial is not someone else's. It's my own system protecting me from really understanding how bad it was. And I was 56 when that came. Even though I knew no adult lived with me in the 10th grade. No adult lived with me in the 11th grade. And I used to tell that story without the feelings. And I'm making amends from 12-step podiums for kind of sanitizing the story and almost giving vicarious trauma by saying, oh yeah, my great-grandmommy murdered my great-granddaddy, she was a flop. That's not okay to tell that story in that way, but I didn't know any different. But now that my feelings have come, I know differently. So there was a lot of ouch. And in the meanwhile, successful, being of service, United Nations Humanitarian of the Year, Time Magazine Person of the Year, Harvey's and Rikers. We've got intimacy coordinators in Hollywood for the first time anywhere. I mean, useful, of service. Isn't that just unbelievable? I mean, that's amazing. It's like, normally people read a different kind of biography before I get on stage, and I'm like, it's a miracle that a kid like me ends up in a room like this. Thank you for that biography. I lived it myself. I'm a senior fellow at Harvard again this fall. Second time around, y'all. When they gave me that Dean Scholar Award, it was no favor. My ass earned it. When I went to school there for my graduate degree, it's unbelievable, the resilience of kids who come out of families like I did. That's what you're dealing with, the potential of these kids. But man, do we need help. Oh my God, the help I needed. I needed a ride to school. I needed help with geometry. I needed someone to be there with me when I started my period. I needed food. I still do not know where I got food for 2 years. And I tell you, if it weren't for my fellow travelers in 12-step program, like when my memories, there are some memories I don't have, like the part of me that's afraid of if I get the memory of where the food came from, like the part of me that's afraid that I might remember I ate rancid food, like that can get scary when the feelings come. And if I did, it's okay. I'll be okay. True self, higher power, fellow travelers, recovery. My nervous system will only give me what I need to know. I need to take a breath. Let's regulate. I have been so helped and supported by myself, by my own system, every step of the way, and that has shown up with people coming and stepping in and being available and present with the most exquisite precision with every moment that these feelings have unfrozen. And so I want to go back to that date I mentioned, the 14th of October, 2024, and kind of bring you up today and then talk about what it means to live with freedom as an adult child with all the feelings coming and restaging and reprovisioning and supplying myself the things that were lacking. But the more that you can be here for those kids today, the less they're going to have to go through what I've been going through tomorrow. So again, did all the adult work, 12-step program, EMDR, grief work, trauma work, non-dominant hand. I mean, just worked so hard on my own behalf, and really had beautiful recovery. I mean, made peace with my major caregivers. Some people would call them perpetrators. I call them mommy and daddy. I mean, made peace. It was like, had a beautiful, intimate, tender, precious relationship with my beloved mother when she passed. And I'm not going to go into that tonight because that's a whole other thing. But, I went on sabbatical to spend more time with my mom before she died. You know what we did the first day of my sabbatical? We went to the mall to return a bra. That is some quality time with your mommy when you missed out on her when you were growing up, right? So I started my PhD at the University of California at Berkeley in 2016, and I dropped out because I was getting headaches. And then I kept off and on getting these headaches. Anybody got kids at Pathstone with headaches? Then I started being hospitalized all around the world for headaches. Switzerland, Germany, Iceland, all over America, all the finest emergency departments in America, all these great neurologists. I never had a headache in my life. I never had a headache in my life. I had childhood feelings and trauma in my system that was trying to unfreeze. And when I was sitting in an internal family systems therapist's office, after doing that particular modality in addition to all my other therapy, on the 14th of October, my therapist, Susan, she said, "What part do you want to visit with today?" And I went inside, and I had two parts I don't know if you know what a part is. It's just like, do you want to go to the park, or do you want to stay home with your retainer and watch a movie? It's like, what part of you is here today? So I went inside, and I had these two parts I was already kind of familiar with, and then I thought, there's this part here that it's unfamiliar. This is a part I don't, and I'm very instinctual, and when I go inside, and I said, I want to visit with this part, and it wasn't a part, it was a feeling. It was a feeling from age 11, and that was my first childhood feeling that unfroze, and that's a big story. My pop came into my life at age 11. He was addicted. Mom was addicted to his addiction. They were all wadded up doing their thing. My poor sister was just wadded up in their wadded upness, and I got lost in all of that. And I began to unfreeze that 11-year-old. And it's physically an unfreezing. It's like the being frozen in the bed when bad things happened at night. All of just this animation started to unleash and unfurl and animate and activate from my system. And that 11-year-old, she had things to say. She had movements. She needed to vomit. She needed to poop. I mean, this is not pretty, people. This is childhood trauma. This is what Pathstone is intervening on. And then a month later, my 14-year-old unfroze in the middle of the night. I am a survivor by adults of commercial sexual exploitation in a foreign country. And when that unfroze and my partner was with me, he closed the windows of the house because the sounds coming out of this body, he thought someone was going to call the police. That was like 8 hours of like unbelievable. And since then, I play, I dance, I go to meetings, I'm in the garden, I'm with my kitty cat of 16 years, I have fun, and then something happens, my head gets a little itchy. I don't have headaches, but my scalp will just get a little itchy, and I tune in, and I'm like, oh, baby, who's here? And the 9-year-old comes. Or the 22-year-old who moved to California and actually needed guidance and support. Big girls need guidance and support too. No one taught me anything growing up. I lived alone, in homes alone. No one taught me when I got to the second largest city in North America where to get my oil changed, how to get renters, and they didn't do it. They'd come to LA, buy $800 bottles of wine, do a concert, and leave. I was terrified when I moved to California to become an actor. When my feelings from age 22 unfroze, I was no more surprised than anybody else. So I've had feelings unfreeze since that day in that office from so many ages, and it's non-chronological, it's non-linear, it's messy. Sometimes it's in the back garden on a quilt, sometimes it's in the bed, sometimes it's like a siren, and I always have a witness. And someone who was witnessing said, that sounded like a siren because what happened to you was criminal. Someone should have called the police. You know, or sometimes the feeling that comes is sorrow, and it's like there's a sound from my sacrum that's like sorrow, or there's a sound that's for loneliness, or what. It's just fascinating what the body does. You know, Bessel wrote it, the body keeps the score. And mine has been like in the hollow of the marrow of my bones, and it's been in those little kids inside of me. So it keeps coming up and out and up and out and up and out. Thank you, honey. And with more, there's just more capacity, there's more freedom, there's more joy, and it's and the time and the attention that it takes. I mean, this has been a full-time job. I'm grateful that I have this financial autonomy and independence, so I could just tune in and give myself the time and space to do this. And I'm going to just tell you a little bit about the 9-year-old, because then this is going to lead to the fun. So one day, I drew a red ball with my left hand, my non-dominant hand. And I reached out to, we call ourselves fellow travelers, adult children. I reached out to someone who's the same age as I. And I said, do you remember playing Foursquare with the red ball? And she was like, yeah. And it had this texture. So that sat for a while. And then there was a bird's nest at my house. And I was very unsafe at night as a child. So going to bed, you know, and I'd worked the 12 steps on going to bed at a certain time. You know, I mean, I really did try to do good things for myself. But what I needed to do was create safety and reparent myself at night. And so anyway, I started reparenting myself at night, and this little thing inside me said, I want to sleep with the bird's nest on my chest. So I did. So I go to Berlin. My partner's Swiss, and we live in Europe. It's confusing, but anyway, we do. And so I'm in Berlin, and I have this wonderful body worker, somatic, craniosacral, all the great things, and she's working on me. And she says, are you grieving something? I said, oh, yes. And she said, you have 2 bird's nests right here, right here. And that 9-year-old unfroze. And that's the one who showed me how parentified I was from that age, and how scared I was of the hot oven, how scared I was of everything. But the other thing she showed me was the love and tenderness with which I cared for myself. The way I parented myself at that age, and the way I cared for my baby doll, was the way I also cared for myself. And that's the power of community and us fellow travelers. Like, I have another fellow traveler who's going to show me how to play Foursquare because she was so boss at it. And she looked up her baby doll, and I looked up my baby doll. So I'm like integrating and stitching all these things together and reclaiming that little one who was in a 3,000-acre state park alone all the time at the creek. But she didn't know the difference and how unsafe she was. But I get to say to her, you actually weren't supposed to be by yourself, but you're here with me now. And then after the feelings unfreeze, it's like this post-surgery delicacy, post-op recovery room for a couple of weeks. I mean, it's like sensitive stuff, really, really sensitive, that reintegration. You know, the Japanese poetry after the exquisite vase breaks and it's put back together with gold. I say to my partner, you know, the molten is still wet. We're fusing, we're delicate. You know, we go to the Swiss Saxon National Park to hike for the weekend, and I'm in the back with the stuffed animal. You know, like, we're delicate back here because the 9-year-old just unfroze, and she's here. But then the awe and the wonder and the reclaiming of that innocence, and seeing the world from this, seeing Niagara Falls from the mist and remembering that. I mean, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. And so this was in March that the 9-year-old unfroze, and my birthday's in April. And I said, well, I'll be at home in Tennessee for my birthday. And the 9-year-old said, well, I want field day for my birthday. Did y'all have field day in Canada where you have like sack race and spoon in it? And I said, oh, okay, we'll have field day. Well, I invited some people and she did too. And she said, is it your birthday or my birthday? And she said, I don't like him. He's not good with kids. Take him off the guest list. And I said, okay. So I really learned how to reparent and let those young parts of me who had no voice growing up have autonomy and voice. And I gave this inner 9-year-old a birthday party, and it was so safe and so delightful and so full of mirth and gentleness, and just like, this may not make any sense to you, but it makes sense to me because I didn't have those experiences growing up. And so to do that today, the point is, I listen to myself. I listen to myself. And so over a period of month when I was planning this birthday party, it was like, no, there's not a start and a finish line. There's no competition. I'm a child. No, the eggs have to be hard-boiled because I don't want anybody to be embarrassed if an egg cracks. No, there has to be gentleness breaks for people who are shy. Put the quilt over there away so they can be shy if they need a break from people. Like the tenderness, the sensitivity, the attunement of a child is alive in me today by virtue of these feelings coming. And I just said to people, I'm giving a birthday party for my inner 9-year-old. You can come on those terms or you cannot come on those terms. And the gift that this is giving others to play and relax and feel safe, whether it's throwing a frisbee or wetting your pants because you laugh so hard, the unself-consciousness is so beautiful. And you know, the other thing that came is like the freedom from cynicism that a child has is alive in me again today because of this. So I want to get to the teenager, because my teenager experienced such grave boundary violations over and over and over and over again, and so much fear. You know, people passed out drunk, there being fires, fist fight, all the things, right? And my teenager is such a source of integrity and justice and fire and backbone. And she thinks that she has to correct you right now and the world right now and teach everybody right now, you know, and never had a ride to school. No one did anything ever, you know, held me accountable as a child for no adult being there. And the confusion, and to go inside and say to those kids, that teenager inside of me, she doesn't even know what she likes because she was just so not allowed to be okay being an age, and like help her read like second wave feminism, but say you don't have to go fix it all right now. And then let me as an adult do the adult things. But she has so much rage and so much pain. So I gave her a dance party last weekend. And everyone brought their inner teen, and for the chance for everyone just to relax and dance. Okay, you know that it's working when 80-year-old people are dancing to The Clash and playing air guitars with bubble wands. It's working. You know, and I'm like using a balloon as an air guitar, singing U2, and it's just mysterious, and it's everyone's system is different and unique, or bio-individuality, or the mystery of the psyche, whatever you want to call it. It just works. And unburdening these parts that had so much ouch and letting them heal, you know, letting the feelings unfreeze and letting them heal. And you know what, y'all? I got a lot of ages left. You know, I'm aware that most of the 11th grade where I lived alone, but there's so many different ways that the work happens. Like this morning I dreamt about 2 family members, but the previous 3 mornings I dreamt about my mom, and my body's grieving in my sleep. But I recognized she was 3 different ages, and I was curious about her, and it's like I was curious about her true self, and then I wondered if I was connecting with my true self at those ages that she was in the dream. I don't know. I don't have to know. This system is just working a lot, right? It's just working a lot. Because this is what it's like to be an adult child who has chosen a path of healing and growth and self-compassion and self-acceptance and self-love. Because the trauma I do not transform in myself is trauma I will transfer. And how I do something is how I do everything. And if I want to go far and wide in this world, which I have, I've been in brothels in 22 countries. I've been to South Sudan. I've been to Eastern Congo so many times. When I was in my first brothels in India and the police were there, I thought they were there to protect me. Oh no, they were there to exploit sex. I've been to Cambodia. I've done it. But if I want to go far and wide, I have to go in and deep. And it is a gift that these feelings are unfreezing, and that I have the inner resource, the inner capacity, the inner trust, and the willingness to reparent and hold this space for this precious inner family that didn't have a pathstone as a kid, that didn't have anyone asking me any questions. No one asked me a single question when I lived as a minor alone. No guidance counselor, no school bus driver, no neighbor, no teacher, no minister, nobody. How is that possible? Mr. Grunwald, this is my inner teen a little bit. You can see her, right? You see her coming out. I was so ashamed one week to beg Annie Ingram for a ride to school. I skipped school for a week. When I went back to school the next week, I coughed in the hallway to pretend I was sick, as if that were my fault. I was a child. And the headmaster said, "Nice try, Ashley. Shame on him. Shame on him. Shame on the whole system." That was not my fault. That is not a child's responsibility. I have a new little sister. Her name is Jaha. She is from the smallest village in the smallest country in sub-Saharan Africa. She was 14 years old when she was trafficked to this country. She knew to tell a guidance counselor. I didn't. But that was the guidance counselor's responsibility, not mine. You're making a difference by being here tonight. What you do matters. My telling this story matters. All I wanted was to matter. I wanted to be listened to, and I wanted attention. And children don't have a choice. There's a book in Al-Anon called Hope for Today. It's for adult children of alcoholics. And at the front it says, the difference is that children don't choose an alcoholic spouse or boyfriend or girlfriend. We're born into it. But I took so much responsibility for myself as an adult. I apologized to my parents for the rage I carried as an adult toward them. But that transformed the relationship I was able to have with them. And you know what that forgiveness led to? Last week I sat with my pop. And I was telling him about that 22-year-old and how I didn't need him to scold me when I charged something to my mom's credit card, bed sheets for my apartment, without her permission. I needed support and guidance. Why was I allowed to drive a U-Haul truck across the country, across the Rockies by myself? I had never driven a U-Haul before. I was terrified. My taking responsibility for my own healing, even though I was a blameless child, opened up all that forgiveness. And my pop can sit with me today while my childhood feelings unfreeze and let me literally cry with my snot slinging cry, and he can sit there with me and witness that and say, "Honey, I will listen anytime. It's the least I can do." Forgiveness doesn't necessarily make sense in a justice perspective when you're an adult child. it does heal. And forgiveness is no favor. I do it for myself. And people aren't bad and wrong, needing to get good and well. They too are sick and suffering. And they need their own help and healing. And so I will always have that Al-Anon perspective of the family dis-ease and discomfort, and incorporate that into how I view the folks who just were checked out when I needed them. And I will always thank my inner teen for her fire and her backbone. But I will do that work on her behalf as an empowered adult in recovery. And I've changed the words to the Serenity Prayer to say, God, grant me the serenity to accept the people I cannot change, courage to love the one I can, and wisdom to know that one is me. Thank you all so much. So thank you for listening to this now leader of the lost children. I have a little one inside of me who's like, we're the leader of the lost children now. Lost children of the world unite. I think you're going to enjoy some supper, and then we'll be back for some Q&A. And I've appreciated the chance to be myself with you. Thank you.